inner world of troubled children and older people struggling with life-threatening illness, and also to listen to my own confusion and troubles. I reached out for help to Robert Coles, a young psychiatrist at the Harvard Health Services, who was working with the black kids who were braving murderous mobs to integrate New Orleans schools. Bob helped me learn for myself the lessons that Freud had taught, how early childhood trauma of loss and forgotten abuse had made me more vulnerable to present loss. He also set an example of personal vulnerability and courageous commitment, sharing with me his own pain and loss and showing me I could make a healing difference in the larger world as well as with individual patients. And Bob helped me begin to know who I was, to appreciate my identity, an enduring sense of myself that has pulled me through troubled times. While I was working as a student on medical and psychiatric wards, I was also welcoming other teachers who began to appear, in books as well as in my life. Early on, there was Man's Search for Meaning, a slim memoir by Viktor Frankl, an Austrian Jewish psychiatrist whom the Nazis had confined in concentration camps. In Auschwitz, in the midst of the most inhumane abuse and unimaginable suffering, Frankl had found the meaning and purpose of his life. Suffering ceases to be suffering, Frankl wrote, at the moment it finds a meaning. He found his in appreciating, understanding, and having compassion for his fellow inmates, and himself. He realized, even while his wife was being condemned to death in another camp, that love is the ultimate good to which man can aspire. He learned to say yes to life in spite of everything. Reading Frankl, admiring him, I knew I wanted to do the same. Helping Diana heal called on everything Bob and books and medical school and my internship had taught me and demanded a willingness to learn and take emotional chances I couldn't have imagined. Diana arrived in the middle of the usual late-night chaos. She had a pixie face, chopped-off brown hair, and a compact body. She wore a pencil skirt and a Peter Pan blouse, and spoke in a wised-up Bronx way that mixed foul-mouthed street talk with offhand, spot-on psychological observation. Her medical chart was filled with dire diagnoses. Several psychiatrists had referred to a borderline personality disorder, another, multiple personalities. One suggested she was schizophrenic. She told me her current therapist was finishing his residency and that she was thinking of killing herself. For the next 2 years, Diana and I met 3 or 4 times a week. I was her doctor, and she was my teacher. Every session was compelling, surprising, absorbing. I never knew who would appear in my office, a terrified 8-year-old, a snarling, murderous version of her mother, a hip 20-something, a helpless, thumb-sucking infant. Diana's features seemed to change to fit the personality who was appearing. Her voice fell with whimpers and rose with screams and shouts. Sometimes she shrank into a corner and stared wildly, as if seeing her mother's ghost. Her severe trauma had apparently caused herself to fragment, to dissociate into different personalities that were unaware of one another. Freud's case histories were coming alive. It became clear to me that Diana's diagnosis was far less important than the early, deep, and often repeated trauma that was responsible for her tortured ways. Over time, I became aware of how childhood abuse shaped some of Diana's most disturbing and bewildering symptoms. "I am garbage. I stink," she growled at me one afternoon, more than a year into our therapy, as enraged as she was ashamed. "My mother," she said, between sobs and gasps, reliving it now, "used to force my head into the garbage. She told me that's where I belonged." Sometimes I was stunned by Diana's rage, at my inattention or the least hint of less than honest words. Sometimes I was flat out frightened by what she was going through and of what she might do to hurt herself. And in between one or another kind of fear and all my effort to understand her and what she was teaching me about myself as a therapist and as a person, I felt my heart opening, maybe more than it ever had, my arms reaching to hold close the terrified child, the whole person who lived in